Thank you for your kind cooperation. And we will be providing simultaneous interpretation for your convenience. Please set your receiver to channel 1 for Korean and channel 2 for English. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, very good morning and welcome to the keynote speech of IASAS Global Summit 2024. My name is Kim Ji-hyun and I'm given the honor of being your MC for their very meaningful event taking place here in DAEGU. Thank you very much for your attendance. So now we'll begin the keynote speech of IASAS Global Summit 2024. And before we begin our keynote speech, we will have a special speech by Vice Chairman Birgit of IASAS. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming her with a big round of applause.
Good morning. Good morning, esteemed guests, honored COSAF chairman, IASAS board members, and summit participants of the 7th IASAS Global Summit in the sunny town of DAEGU in South Korea. Annyeonghaseyo. It's an honor and privilege to start today as the incoming president of IASAS for the next few years. And together with the new executive, we pledge our full commitment to serving the association with the best of our ability. We want to thank our previous presidents for their work and hope to fill their shoes and follow in their footsteps. These were pathfinders and visionaries. I invite you to appreciate the book, to see the past 10 years. The book you received when you came in, and it's with you, and we hope you enjoy it. It's a gift from COSAF, and we thank COSAF for publishing it and celebrating the past 10 years with us. The founder, of course, was Roger Ludeman, who tirelessly drove various inceptions and birthing processes of the association. And then Rob Scheer, our second president, and then our outgoing president, Achim Meyer of der Heide. And here a word for Rob Scheer, and I want to inform our IASAS community who know him well, and some of you might know already that he passed away yesterday, and that we grieve for him. Rob led a number of critical initiatives at IASAS. He was formative in broadening the lens, and for many of us here, he was a ray of sunshine, always seeing the positive, always cheerful, always bringing new ideas, always full of energy. We feel for his wife and his kids, his sons, and our thoughts are with them today and during these very, very painful times. And I ask you all to observe a minute of silence, please. I'd like us to come back, please, into the room, and let us look forward now, ahead to the next few years. I want to introduce our new board. In the name of the new board, we pledge our sincere dedication to the goals of IASAS. I want to invite the board to please stand up. That is our executive, that's our regional directors, and it is various office holders. And if you can give a round of applause for our people standing here. I can't see the regional directors. Let me see. We've got Ben, David, where are they? Oh, there is Matome. Yes, there we are. It's all the lights. Thank you all very much. We've got a few very busy years ahead of us. And I look forward to working with you to achieve our goals. This is then our new board, and with renewed commitment to promote the message and achieve the aims of IASAS, we are very excited to take on our tasks. And here you saw the diversity of our board, and when we in IASAS say we're international and global, this is what it means. It means indeed that we are made up of many nations, of many faces, many genders, many ethnicities, multiple cultures, and many social norms. We bring many religious and personal orientations, and it is this richness that permeates all our structures. And this is why IASAS is truly global. And just a brief word on our aims of IASAS. And I think you've all read the website, of course, and you've read our annual report and our activity report and so forth. But I just want to highlight again what are the three important thrusts of IASAS and where our lens and our most intense energy goes. We aim to empower and embolden staff to make locally relevant and impactful support to our students and the institutions. This means our support needs to be experienced by students as impactful and culturally attuned and socially embedded. So it's not about the best practices, but the most attuned and locally experienced is relevant. So we recognize the diversity of needs, the diversity of living and learning in each student, and that is where we start. The second important thing is that when we implement student programming, we do programming with purpose. This means that our programming, be that leadership, be that in the residences, mentoring, orientation, whatever it might be, our support programs include a purpose, the purpose of students becoming responsible and responsive citizens of this world. It's about coupling the programs with social justice, making sure our students learn while they're in our programs about SDGs, about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the world, and helping our students to become active role players in this. And the third, and to me perhaps most important, is to shape, so the third point of our IASAS is to shape the living and learning context where our students are in a way that levels the playing field for equitable and a fair chance of success. And this third point is perhaps the most important. I come from this to this from my own professional life. My lens has changed over time, and the recognition of context has become more and more important. I was trained as a psychotherapist in Cape Town in South Africa, and the lens, as you can imagine, is very individualistic. And I realized quite quickly on working with patients in Cape Town that, of course, it wasn't an individual effort that made people improve their lives. It was impossible conditions in their context that made it very hard for people, no matter how hard they individually tried. It was contextual factors that impaired people's ability to a fair chance of success. So context matters, and it matters hugely. It is this context, their families, their finances, their histories, their narratives, the family culture, social practices, the school system, living and loving conditions that prime and imprint on these students, creating barriers or enablers to success. So it is critical that we recognize our students as contextualized learners who have complex lives outside of their studies, and that their histories and their narratives and their experiences and their context impact on their chance of success. We know that individual hard work is a nice to have and a good to have. It's not sufficient, though, for success. It is the context that offers enablers or barriers. So our work at our IASAS is more important than ever. The gap between rich and poor is widening, and this means that the context of learning is getting more and more uneven. Our work across the globe is now more relevant than ever. To promote an equitable chance of success, we need a social, cultural context to support our students, and support that is experienced locally as relevant to this student. And therefore, the topic of the summit, student affairs and services and higher education institutions driving sustainable change. So together with our institutions and with our students, we become active and responsive to drive sustainable change towards a more just world. So thank you all for being here and for your commitment to driving change for a more just and sustainable world. I'm Birgit. I'm your incoming IASAS president, and I wish you a fantastic day going forward. Thank you, and Khamsam Nida.
Thank you very much. It was a very deeply moving message to the IASAS, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Ladies and gentlemen, please give another round of applause to Vice Chairman Birgit Schreiber. All right? And she has been elected as the incoming president of IASAS. Thank you very much. And yes, let's get started with the keynote speech. Without further ado, please allow me to invite our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Birgit Phillips. Dr. Birgit Phillips, please come up to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please give her another round of applause. Dr. Birgit Phillips is the Director of Higher Education Teaching and Artificial Intelligence at UARM University of Applied Sciences in Graz, Austria. And she focuses on curriculum development and the integration of AI technology in education and research as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming her with a big round of applause once again.
Thank you very much for this beautiful introduction. Thank you very much to the board of IASAS, the executive directors. Thank you very much to the chairman of COSAF, for everyone involved in organizing this highly professional event. I think you set the bar very, very high. The professionalism shines through. Also, thank you very much for all the invisible people, the helping hands behind the scenes who made this event possible. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Birgit Phillips. I like to introduce myself as a human who cares about other human beings. But to give you a little bit of context, Birgit Schreiber mentioned context matters. Let me give you a little bit of my context. So I come from Austria, a tiny little, relatively insignificant country in the center of Europe. Many people, in fact, I come from a city called Graz. It's the second largest town in Austria with only 300,000 people, roughly. And here's a fun fact. Just recently, a month ago, Graz was voted to be the top #1 city for quiet living in the world because we have a very high density of yoga studios. I didn't know that. Good place to retire. We are known in Austria for the sound of music. Interestingly, the world knows the sound of music. Austrians don't know that musical. Ask any Austrian, no one will know what the sound of music is. Very few people. We are known, we have a few things that we're famous for, maybe Vienna, the beautiful historic buildings, Salzburg, the hometown of Mozart. We have the Alps, we have Hallstatt. Chinese built a copy of Hallstatt in China. We have the Wiener Schnitzel, I don't know if that's known. We also have a few famous personalities, such as musicians, classical musicians, Schubert, Johann Strauss, of course, Wolfgang Amadeus. Where are you? Mozart. Yeah. We have psychoanalysts such as Sigmund Freud or philosophers such as Ludwig Wittgenstein. We have not famous people, famous politicians that we're not proud of at all, such as this fella here. I'm not even going to mention his name. We like to say he's German, but unfortunately, he's Austrian. Arnold Schwarzenegger, famous actors, Christopher Waltz, another one, a little less known. And we have famous scientists, such as the last Nobel Prize in Physics, Anton Zeilinger, very grand name in the field of quantum physics. So much for a little bit of context. What we don't have is kangaroos. We don't have kangaroos in Austria. I get confused all the time as being Australian. And it's amusing. I find it really amusing. Even when I came here, my name tag said, I'm from Australia. This morning, so, Australia, nice. So I find it very amusing because it just, I'm so used to it at this point. I wanted to put in an Austrian flag in a digital tool called Canva. What do I get when I put in Austria? I get a German flag. So even technology doesn't know Austria. So much for context. Yeah, so I think I'm too far away from my computer for the remote to properly work. What's on the agenda of my talk? I want to talk about academia's inconvenient truth. In other words, what is actually wrong with higher education systems around the world? Then I want to talk about how we need to focus our attention in higher education on competency-based orientation or education, which is even more important in an age of AI. And then finally, I want to wrap things up with implications of this AI revolution that's going on for higher education and why we need to change our higher education systems to walk down a more sustainable path. So let's take a look at the first point, the inconvenient truth of academia. So, remote does not like me today. Here we go. I'm firmly convinced, and I'm not the only one, that academia, higher education is part of the problem and also part of the solution of our global system in the world. Never before in the history of humanity have we had so many university-educated people as today. And yet, we can't seem to get the knowledge-action gap under control. In other words, we fully know how we can tackle the grand challenges that we're facing today. We have the knowledge, we have the data, we have the facts, and yet we're not willing to walk that extra mile to actually put that into practice. Yeah? I want to take a quick look back at the higher education system in Europe because it has a very large influence in or on higher education systems around the world. And I think it helps us understand the current system a little better. About 20 years ago, Europe decided to create the higher education area, the European higher education area. You can see it here on the map. There are in total 49 countries. There are only 27 European Union countries, but Europe decided they want to harmonize 49 countries, including Russia, including Turkey, and harmonize them, which means we created an ECTS credit point system that makes it easier for credits to be transferred within and between institutions. So you can take a few credits here, transfer them to another university. The goal was also to increase student mobility and faculty mobility, to increase cultural exchange. The main goal, however, of this Bologna process, as it is called and known around the world, the main goal was to become the most competitive and dynamic knowledge-based society in the world. And what really sticks out here, and I highlighted it again, is the word competitive. Competitive. Why not mutually reinforcing? Why not interconnecting? Why not, I don't know, maybe cooperative? Why competitive? So that really sticks out here. And that has led to a system that basically, pitches one against the other. Where we have competition, we have winners and we have losers. Yeah, it's very simple. It's a very, very simple equation. So what happened is a lot of universities in the last 20 years were privatized. Yeah, there was increasing pressure. Austerity measures were put into place by governments. Cuts in funding took place in public universities. We see that in many different countries. In Austria, I'm very lucky. I come from a country where public education is viewed as a public good. We don't pay for university. We don't even know what student loans are. We don't have a system for student loans. That simply does not exist. People would take it to the streets. We, in fact, about 10 years ago, tried to implement student fees of 380 euros per semester. Students took it to the streets and protested. They're like, no, we're not going to have that. So we don't have student fees. But we do have many of the other problems that I'm talking about here. Yeah. What else has happened? A lot of universities, because of cuts in funding, had to take it to the industries. They had to create industry partnerships, which blurs the lines increasingly between private businesses and higher education. Big tech companies came in, started to offer highly specialized, market-oriented packages and kind of like a Netflix type of education system. Yeah, arts and humanities and social sciences were increasingly eliminated from curricula because they can't be quantified. The effects, you can't measure the effects of these studies, and yet we need those so urgently in this time, because it's exactly these studies that help us understand the world and get a collective understanding of what's going on in this time. Yeah. What else has happened? The financial burden was largely shifted to the families, to the students, yeah, which increases inequality. University rankings, and I'm going to stay here for a while, university rankings time and again have been shown to be completely useless. And there is a lot of consensus about that in the academic community. Even just this couple of months ago, articles have been published by an expert panel that got together last year that looked again at what the effects of university rankings are on university systems. They simplify diversity, they foster misunderstandings, there are large methodological issues, so they're really not that credible. They distort priorities, favoring metrics over quality. There's often a conflict of interest in terms of for-profit ranking organizations. There's a lot of bias and subjectivity in there, and many other reasons, really, they came up with. One of the things, if you look at the last few years in the university rankings, you see a lot of white supremacy going on. In other words, of the top 300 universities, you'll find that 90% of them come from European or Northern Western societies. Yeah? So other universities from the Global South don't really stand a good chance of participating in this race. Yeah? I came across on Twitter a real fun, not an organization, but a group of people from top UK universities. They got together and they publish under the Twitter handle, they call themselves University Wankings. Again, top researchers, professors from UK universities, and they say it's not about the cream rising to the top, but rather about the presence of a system in which the cream identifies itself as better and utilizes system processes to stay there. Yeah. So, in other words, my call for action would be, please ignore university rankings, because they are known to not be very helpful to the cause, so to speak. So reframing Bildung to training. Bildung is a German term that comes from Wilhelm from Humboldt, a German guy, very famous educator, which basically said Bildung, education, should cultivate the mind and the character and develop critical literacy. And that's where we need to go back to. But what happened in the European Union during or after the Bologna process was the opposite. Bildung turned into training. In other words, training people to develop skills that are marketable, that can be, sold. Education turned into a commodity. This also has taken its toll on faculty. We have seen in Europe precarious working conditions, large pay gaps, and a rising inequality also among staff, excessive workloads, this really insane publish or perish culture where people have to churn out papers in order to even survive and keep their jobs, where quality is second to quantity. Professors, faculty, teachers are forced to compete for funding. Some European funding calls have a very low acceptance rate of 4%. Yeah? Can be very frustrating. You spent months applying for funding and then you don't get it. And you might lose your job as a result of it. There's a massive problem with overwork, anxiety, burnout. And worst of all, students have basically become, like I said before, a commodity. So that whole system resulted in poor teaching practices, in teaching to test pedagogies, as we call them, which basically means teachers are so afraid of getting poor evaluations, of losing their job, that they're treating the students, they're basically doing everything to make sure they don't get any bad evaluations. Yeah. And needless to say, the system also has taken its toll on students, has consequences for the students, and I'm going to go through them real quick. But basically, students are again viewed as customers that are passive recipients of knowledge. They also developed a passive approach to learning. Curricula are very rigid, with very tightly knit, with very few options to choose from, very strict timetables. And let me see. The skills they're taught are functional skills, so they can find a job very fast, but not really, there's very little focus on deeper learning or higher critical thinking skills. This increased pressure of competitive individualism is a result of this, which leads to stress, anxiety, loneliness. And if we look at the statistics, I think we see that not just in Europe, we see it in the United States, we see it in South Korea, we see it in many parts of the world. Now, the last 20 years have taken their toll on higher education systems, but the world around us didn't stand still. I'd like to quote Walter Benjamin, a German philosopher, who said, "Whenever the media changes, society changes too." And I like this quote because I think it really is true. So this brings me to my second point. I want to talk about how AI and this entire AI revolution changes how we need to think about the competencies that we need to develop in our students in the future. I'm going to talk about the Bonnie world as well, in case you're wondering what that is. So let's take a quick look back at the evolution of competencies. The first industrial revolution, again, started in Great Britain and then moved across continental Europe and the United States. Competencies such as reading, writing, simple machine operation, physical strength were important. About 120 years later, during the second industrial revolution, women were educated for the first time. Expertise became more important. There was a separation between execution and planning. It was important to be conformist, to be obedient. Yeah? Fast forward again, another 100 years, all of a sudden, the computer age started, yeah, in the 1960s, around that time, yeah. Computer literacy became important. Critical thinking became more important. Problem solving became more important. There's one missing. I'm going to get to that in a little while. So the third industrial revolution was also the time during, well, the Cold War period. After the Cold War, after the dissolution of the USSR, the US military coined the term VUCA world, and that's a term that has been adopted by management theories and strategists since then. And they said, we live in the VUCA world. The world is much more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, this new post-Cold War world order that we live in. Yeah. Now, fast forward again to the 2000s, things have changed once again. We're facing completely different challenges now, or some of the challenges that we had before have gotten or have become reinforced. The grand challenges, I'm going to click through them really quickly. The first thing that comes to mind is the climate crisis, of course. Some people say the biodiversity crisis is even worse, much greater threat to humanity. Population growth, the waste and wastewater problems that we have around the world. Sustainable global nutrition, how can we feed this increasing world population? Sustainable energy supply, we need to supply them with energy. Resource scarcity, massive problem, global soil losses. And it goes on, increasing pollutant emissions, increasing poverty, especially since the pandemic, where about 20, 30 years of progress were undone. And also the destabilization of financial markets. We see that now with increasing prices left and right. almost every economy around the world. Also, in almost all continents, we see massive migration issues. Yeah? We see wars. We have a war in Europe right outside our door for the first time since the Second World War. De-democratization, that's something that's been going on for the past 15 years, yeah? Where countries that used to be democracies, such as the United States, are no longer considered full democracies. And of course, artificial intelligence, the last one. And I'm going to go into this one for a little while because this has a huge effect on what's going on in our current world. And if you look at social media, if you see what's going on, you see two camps. You see those that are euphoric, excited about what's happening in the field of artificial intelligence, that completely blank out some of the dangers. And then you see the doomsdayers, those that say artificial intelligence is going to kill us all. Yeah. So again, those that are euphoric think that AI might solve some of humanity's worst problems. And then you have those that say, no, it could be the end for all of us. Yeah? Some famous people, Nick Bostrom, futurist from Oxford University, says we're like little children playing with a bomb. Or Stephen Hawking, he says AI could be the worst event in the history of civilization. He's dead, so he said that. And not least, Sam Altman, the head and founder of OpenAI, he says AI could kill us all. Wonderful to hear that from the guy who started a company that basically unleashed, I would say, yeah, generative AI onto the world about a year ago. Now, one thing that is happening today, and this is important in the context of higher education, is Europe wanted to be the leader in a knowledge society. But we're no longer in a knowledge society. We're in the transition to a data society, a data-driven society. What does that mean? I want to show you what that means. The key word here, the central challenge, is exponential growth. What does that mean? Take a look at that line here. The green line is not exponential growth. That's linear growth. The red line shows us exponential growth. And somewhere on that red line, you see a tipping point when information is just exploding, data generation. And I want to show you what that means. There's some estimates because we don't really know for real the facts, but the estimates say that from the beginning of humanity until until 2003, about 5 exabytes of data, of information were generated. 5 exabytes of data. Eric Schmidt, Google CEO, between 2001 and 2015 said that. Now, 1 exabyte of data is 1 billion gigabytes. It's a very large number. Keep that number 5 in mind. In 2010, it is estimated that we generated 5 exabytes in only 10 days. By 2014, we generated about 5 exabytes in about 10 minutes. Today, it's hundreds of exabytes every day, or thousands every day. We don't even speak in exabytes anymore, we speak in zeta or zettabytes. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. You can see here a diagram that starts in 2010 of the generation of zettabytes in a given year. These are dimensions that are beyond human comprehension. In other words, it is impossible for us to fully understand what those numbers really mean. But I want to give you an example, a story of basically a parable of exponential growth. And it goes like this. The person who invented the chessboard, the chess game, a guy in India, went to the local king, showed him the game, and the local king was really excited. He thought, wow, this is a fantastic game. This is great. I want to reward you for it. So he asked, what kind of reward would you like to have? And he said, the inventor, very humbly, I just want 1 grain of rice for the first square. I want 2 grains of rice for the second square. I want 4 grains of rice for the third square. I want 8 grains of rice for the fourth square, and so on. The king thought, wow, he's really humble. He laughed it off. He thought, of course you can have that. Easily, no problem. But what he failed to understand was how exponential growth actually works. So if you take a look, we have 64 squares on a chessboard. That's 18 trillion grains of rice. In fact, if we write it out, we have 18 quintillion, 446 quadrillion, 744 trillion, 73 billion, 709 million. I can't even say it. The number is too large to understand it. It was more rice than the king had in the entire country. It was more rice than is even available on the entire planet. Yeah? So who's smart? The king or the inventor of the chess game? Let's see if you understood it. If you know this one, please don't shout it out. Take a minute to think about it. There's a pond with water lilies, and the water lilies double in number every single day. If the pond is completely covered with water lilies after 30 days, on which day will the pond be half full? Who knows the answer? Now you can shout it out. Yes, 29 is the correct answer. Intuitively, most people would say 15 half, right, of 30, but that is not true. On the 29th day, the pond is half full, but it doubles every day, which means on the 29th day, it is half full. Correct answer. This is how exponential growth works. Why is this important? Why do we need to know this in a data-driven society? Because this is the world we're living in. A very practical example, and this is data from March. AI-generated song apps have only been around for a few months, not for a long time. But now we already have 80 million AI-generated songs on streaming platforms. 120,000 tracks are added every day. This is March. We're probably now at 1 million songs added every day. What does that mean for the creative industry? What does that mean for the musicians whose livelihood depends on music? They can't be found anymore because the streaming platforms are completely spoiled and flooded with AI-generated music. Yeah, that's why this is important to understand exponential growth. What does it mean for education when we can't find good content anymore? Yeah. What does it mean? Some of the effects we have. Deepfakes are proliferating. They're spreading like wildfire. At the moment, the vast majority of deepfakes can be found in the porn industry, but that can change as well. Unlikely though, having a little bit insight in the porn industry and having done some research, but a major threat to our democracies are of course deepfakes. When we think about elections, 2024 is the year of elections. We've already seen some of the effects it had on elections in Slovakia, in India, in the United States. Yeah? Korea is coming up. I actually found some articles on that as well. So it is a threat to democracies. Now, another thing that I think we need to talk about is when AI surpasses human intelligence. Is that even possible? Has it happened already? We speak of superhuman performance. Yeah. And this is something that we cannot close our eyes to because it will have a devastating effect on our education systems. And we've already, Sam Altman, he said he expects AI to be capable of persuasion abilities within the near future. A few weeks later, literally a few weeks later, the first papers were published that showed that AI in specific areas already has superhuman intelligence. Papers were published in the field of debating skills, where they showed that AI exceeds human intelligence or human debating skills in 87% of the cases. It's been found to be far more effective. Yeah. Another factor is emotional intelligence or emotional competence. This is a factor that was always said to be completely impossible. Yeah. How can an AI have emotional intelligence? Wrong. Emotional assessments by GPT-4 outperformed 85% of people in effectiveness, innovativeness, and empathy in specific fields. I'm only talking about specific fields here. All of this backed up by research. Creativity. This is a study that goes back to October last year, where external jurors rated startup ideas created by ChatGPT-4 and found that it was significantly better than those startup ideas that were created by management students or entrepreneurship students. And finally, the last one I found in my research is analytical skills in medical diagnosis. We already know that AI is actually superior in many specific fields to general practitioners in 28 out of 32 characteristics, and also preferred for empathy again, as we saw earlier, and judgment on 24 out of 26 scales. So this is only the development of about 1 year of research of unleashing generative AI onto the world. Now, 2023 was the year of chatbots. 2024 is the year of AI agents. What are AI agents? They're basically fully autonomous systems that connect with other tools, with outside external tools. And they can do so much more than just a single chatbot. And they're being developed at a rapid scale. What does that mean? I give you some examples. I actually found a really good one. Maybe you know it, Devon. I'm going to skip ahead. Devon is the world's first AI software engineer. And this is what Devon can do. Hasn't been unleashed yet to the public, but some studies are being done, and of course it is not to the full capacity of a real software engineer yet, but it's getting there. And it can already work autonomously, write code, create websites within minutes, develop apps, fix errors in codes, plan complex tasks, make thousands of decisions within several seconds, learn from mistakes and continuously improve, develop software with just one command, one prompt, execute work orders, perform routine tasks of software engineers, and so forth. There are more being developed currently in the field of interior design, in the field of marketing, in the field of, mostly social media marketing and so forth. What strikes me as a little bit dangerous is when we look at all the AI research out there, only 2% of the AI research focuses on ethics and on safety. Yeah. What else do I find a little concerning, or maybe a little more than just a little concerning? Last week, 2 members of OpenAI, not members, actually one was the co-founder, Ilya Sutskever, who was always a little critical of the lack of focus on AI safety, but he was in charge of AI safety. He left OpenAI. Also, Jan Leike, he was also in charge of AI safety. Both of them left last week. Why did they leave? Because they said, over the past years, safety culture and processes have taken a backseat to shiny products. They said, ethically, we can't work for these companies anymore. And this is all the more telling because Jan Leike probably lost a lot of money because they have to sign these agreements where if they speak out against the companies, they're not going to get their shares in the company. So doing that was a pretty bold step. Is it concerning? I find it very concerning. Of course, all of this has an effect on universities and the legitimacy. There's articles out there, if you search on the internet about the legitimacy on higher education, you will find that many of them even question, do we even need universities in the future? What is the relevance of universities? I am personally convinced that yes, of course we need universities. They're extremely important, but we need to refocus education in this AI era. Yeah. But one thing is clear, education will be changing. Higher education can't stay the way it is. Traditional education models will not survive in this AI-driven future. I am 100% convinced. Christopher Pissarides, a Nobel Prize winner in economics, he said at the beginning of year, I would even warn students to study STEM subjects. MINT is the German one. STEM subjects now, because they're basically abolishing them themselves. In other words, AI is even questioning some of the assumptions that have governed so many of our decisions for the last years. Nobody ever said, STEM, you're not going to find a job. Of course you're going to find a job if you study a STEM field, yeah? But that's being questioned now. Of course, we don't know what the future really brings, but what we can see in our students, and this is something that I think it's really important to be empathetic to. Generation Z, Generation Alpha, our young students entering the university now, the world they're seeing ahead of them is really scary. It's something that I think a lot of us can't really imagine what it must be like, but I think it's really important to keep in mind their perspective as well. So this world that we're living in at the moment is no longer VUCA. The term VUCA doesn't do it justice anymore. And this is why we speak of the Bonnie world. This is a term that was introduced by James Cascio, a very famous or renowned American futurist, author, researcher. He said the world we live in now is brittle. People are anxious. It is non-linear, and it is incomprehensible. Brittle makes sense. Think of supply chain, the supply chain systems during the COVID pandemic. All of a sudden, things break down when one tiny little thing happens. Remember the tanker in the Suez Canal? All of a sudden, the entire supply system broke down. People are anxious. They don't know if their job still exists by the time they graduate from college. We heard it yesterday. 85% of the jobs might be gone by the time 2030 rolls around. Non-linear. We don't know that, I don't know if I'm going to be a university professor in 5 years. Who knows? Yeah. Things change so fast at this time. And the world has become extremely incomprehensible. Nobody really understands what's going on in these AI systems. Not even the developers who develop AI. Not even these people themselves know what's going on in this black box. So having a term like Bonnie helps us make sense of this world. Having a common language helps us make sense of this world. We say that language shapes reality. At my university, I introduced the term Bonnie in various talks I gave there. And just a few months later, people, when I see them, when we talk, they're like, yeah, this Bonnie world, we have to de-Bonnie. You know, we came up with our own language, and it's fun, you know. Everybody knows what we're talking about when we speak of the Bonnie world. So language does shape reality. The fourth industrial revolution, that is the missing point, the fourth one in line, is, and you know, there is not conclusive research, but many people agree that we've already entered the fourth industrial revolution, where we see a merging of the physical and the digital world. We speak of cyber-physical systems, platform economies, hyper-personalization, fully autonomous systems, predictive technologies, and so forth. Yeah. So if we look at the competencies again, the competencies that we need in the fourth industrial revolution are once again very different from the industrial revolutions before then. AI literacy, to name one. We're not going to get around that. We can't stick our head in the sand and say it's not there. Yeah. We need analytical skills, strategic skills, systems thinking, futures thinking, the idea or the competence to imagine different futures, different ways of being in this world that are radically different, that are creative. Yeah? These are the kinds of competencies that we need. We need to be resilient. Resilient, in other words, adapt to different systems, being flexible in our thinking, in our being in the world. Yeah? Normative competence, in other words, we need to have the competence to understand the values that guide our thinking, the mindset that guides our thinking. Why do I believe that, for example, I have to work 60 hours a week? Who tells me that? Is it society that tells me that? Do I even want that? Maybe I want more work-life balance in my life. Yeah? What are the political views? Are they mine? Were they passed down from generation to generation? Who do I vote for? Do I vote for a party because that's my belief? Or do I vote for a party because my parents voted for that party? That's the kind of critical thinking that we need in this world. So, my last point, what are the implications for higher education? I'm going to talk a little bit about academic integrity because I think it is absolutely, first and foremost, important that the scientific process remains intact. In other words, we need to make sure that research remains trustworthy and it remains credible. And this is something that we can't take for granted in a time of exponential information explosion. Yeah? There was an interesting research that was done at the end of last year where they asked, it was published in Nature, a very renowned journal, they asked 1,600 academics what they think how AI will impact the scientific process. And the results are not surprising, I would say. More than 60%, almost 70% think that it may proliferate misinformation. It makes plagiarism a lot easier. It may bring mistakes or inaccuracy into research. It makes it easier to fabricate or falsify information. It may bring biases in the literature. It makes it harder to assess student learning, and so forth. So if you look at this, this kind of reflects the current scene. Until very recently, if you use ChatGPT was trained until July 2023. Now it's December 2023. And you would always get the statement, as of my last knowledge update. Now, I did a little test for myself. I put in this statement, as of my last knowledge update, into Google Scholar. And I was shocked to find more than 200 papers that had this statement in scientific published papers, which means the researchers didn't even bother taking out that statement of their published papers. So what does this show us? The publisher perish culture forces us to publish. Quality, well, should be important, but is not always this important. Same for students. If you go on TikTok and look at millions, thousands, I don't know how many, but a lot of videos that give you cheat hacks, basically how you can cheat your way through college, yeah, through university education. Another study found that the impact of AI on human loss and decision-making is enormous. In other words, this is something we need to look into. De-skilling, the de-skilling is actually a new term invented, or at least it was new for me, I should say, as a result of AI. Now, does this mean we can close our eyes and say, no, I'm not interested, I don't have time? I myself spent thousands of hours. I was very lucky because I worked for a company last year where I integrated an AI-powered learning management system, so I started getting into the AI field. I also just completed a master's degree in this field because I do realize that learning never ends, and we need to basically stay up. What is the word? Now I can't think of the word in English. We need to stay updated on these issues. So we need to integrate AI in higher education. We need to teach our students to behave responsibly, to integrate it into curricula. We need to prepare them for a world of work that already uses AI and teach them how to practically apply it. I wrote an article recently, it was published a few weeks ago in the Times Higher Education. It's kind of like a blog article, it's nothing too scientific, but I proposed the Deep Learn framework. I'm not going to go into it because I don't have time, but if you like, you can Google it. It's basically a set of guidelines as to how we can integrate AI into education. Now, the second point I want to talk about the implications, there's obviously many, many more. I'm just going to broach these two. The second one is competence. We need to focus our higher education efforts towards competency-oriented education. Now, most people, when we talk about classroom learning, or ask any teacher, Many people think it's just about disseminating knowledge, but competence is about a lot more. It's about skills, and it's also about attitude. Focusing on ESD, Education for Sustainable Development competencies, is that's actually my part of my job. We're just basically revamping at my university our entire, all of our curricula. I'm spearheading the process of the didactic, the teaching part of it, so to speak, and upskilling our teachers so they know how you can foster these competencies, because that's a skill, and it requires teachers to change their mindset as well, to not walk into the classroom with 205 PowerPoint slides, stand there and preach to the students. If you look at the literature, you'll find 8 core competencies. There's obviously more, but they've been summarized in 8 core competencies of Education for Sustainable Development competencies, and they can be summarized as systems thinking. Oops, somebody's having a party next door. Systems thinking, futures literacy, I mentioned that earlier, the ability to foresee different future alternatives, normative competence, which is the idea that you think about the values that guide your thinking, strategic competence, collaborative competence, critical thinking competence, and then we have 2 more, self-competence, which involves motivation and knowing where your limits are, educating yourself, staying motivated, don't just wait for someone to tell you what to do, and integrated problem-solving competence. Now, it's very difficult to have these learning goals and to kind of adjust the classroom accordingly. This means that teachers need to develop new skills. They need to learn about, for example, how can we implement transformative learning into the classroom? What does that even mean? Transformative learning is the process where we help students to critically examine their assumptions that kind of drive their behavior, their actions, But how can we integrate that into the classroom? That's not easy, It also means that we have to rethink, reassess our assessment culture and think about whether we really need grades, and if we need them, what do we need them for? The future of the examination culture, and this is something that there's a lot of talk about now in the higher education industry, focuses on the learning process and not so much on the output. Having a master thesis as an output, wonderful if the AI can do the literature research. Push a button, it will write itself, with a few good prompts. Learner-centered. When I say learner-centered, what that means, it focuses again on the different needs of the learners. Not every learner has the same cognitive ability, and not everyone learns under the same conditions. Introducing diverse examination formats. There is more than just a written test at the end of the semester. There are many dozens of different, very creative examination formats. I can't go into that because we don't have time, but that's exactly what we are training our university, our professors now to do, and competency-oriented. We're talking about an era of ungrading. That's a new buzzword now in the industry. In other words, we're shifting away from metrics and scoring towards more qualitative and reflective forms of assessment. So another word I want to another term I want to familiarize you with is the term blended assessment. Blended assessment go beyond pure memorization of facts. Blended assessment means that you don't just focus on summative, but you combine summative and formative assessments. And you try to focus on procedural knowledge rather than pure output knowledge. I want to give you one more research that I think is really telling about grades, because there's a very large focus in most countries on grades, on standardized tests. And I think this research might change your way of thinking, hopefully, a little bit about the way we should think about grades. What do grades really tell us? Or maybe we should ask, do we really measure what we want to measure? Now, I'm an education scientist. I do know the research on the effectiveness of grades. And one of the things that that is really where there's a lot of consensus on in the literature is that grades do not really tell us what we're trying to assess. In fact, the most seminal research in the field summarized 100 years of grading research and found, they actually put a number to it, that grades only tell us 25% of what that person can actually do or is able to do, of the competence of a person. 25%. You know, what is the remaining 75%? The remaining 75% of the grade are all these other factors that go into a grade, but they don't actually tell us the competency of a person. Psychosocial factors, perceived competence, coping strategies, effort, behavior, and so forth. Again, this is 100 years of research. There is consensus in the industry that grades do not have the effect that we would like them to have. Yeah. What else do grades do? They increase extrinsic motivation and they reduce the intrinsic one. Why? Because students focus on learning for an exam. They want to pass an exam. They promote the development of wrong learning strategies. Many students lose their ability to be curious about a topic. Learning is no longer fun, yeah, for many of them. It also increases the stress level because they have to reach a certain goal. They tempt students to cheat. Oops, what is going on here? Sorry, is this a sign that I'm over? Are you telling me I need to stop? Sorry, I have no idea. This is a weird window from my computer. It's in German, so I'm going to skip ahead. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to the end of my presentation, which is also, I think, a call for action. And I'm using, this is not my idea, but I'm using, I'm borrowing a concept from Rassak and Motten, two emeritus professors from the Malaysia Islamic International University. I hope I said it correctly. They came up with this idea that the world or higher education needs to stop being weird and needs to become wiser. And what they mean by that, they said weird stands for westernized, economic-centric, industry-led, reputation-obsessed, and dehumanizing. And education, thank you, I totally agree with you. And education should become wiser. Ooh, okay, now, oh, I see the time here. Sorry, you can't see that. Just popped up. It should become worldwide, inclusive, sustainable, equitable, and rahmatan lil alamin. I hope I'm saying it somewhat right, which is a term borrowed from the Quran, and it says we need to foster mercy, compassion, and benevolence to all. And I interpret that last statement as a way of, as the counterpart to competition. So moving away from competition. This is what I would like to see higher education move towards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your inspirational speech. Please give a big round of applause. That was a keynote speech by Professor Dr. Birgit Phillips. And she mentioned during the keynote speech not to worry about university ranking, and I found that part particularly impressive. And the mention of the impact of AI was impressive as well. And I'd like to mention that she's from Austria, not Australia. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And next, we will have the student panel discussion. And before the panel discussion, we will take a 5-minute break for stage setup. Please return to your seats after the break. 네, 5분 뒤에 패널 디스커션을 시작하겠습니다. 5분이 굉장히 짧은 시간입니다, 여러분. 네, 너무 밖에 오래 계시지 마시고요. 금방 돌아와서 자리에 앉아주시면 감사하겠습니다. 쉬는 시간 동안 저희는 무대 정리를 하고 난 뒤에 학생 패널 디스커션 이어가도록 하겠습니다. 잠시 후에 뵙겠습니다. May I have your attention, please? The panel discussion of IASAS Global Summit 2024 will begin soon. Please wrap up your conversations, find your seats, and turn your attention to the stage. Thank you for your kind cooperation. The panel discussion will begin soon. Please wrap up your conversations, find your seats, and turn your attention to the stage. Thank you for your kind cooperation.
Testing.
And I believe the stage is ready, so we're going to have a student panel discussion under the theme of DEIB in South Korea, Student Experiences and Perspectives. And Please allow me to invite our moderator, Dr. Lisa Bardil Moscaritolo, Secretary General of IASAS, and the student panelists, Ms. Park Ki-kyung, and Ms. Dang Chu Trang, Mr. Yu Seung-seok, Mr. Lee Sung-jun, Mr. Yang So-hyuk, and Mr. Universe Shrestha. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them with a big round of applause.
Thank you.
And,
Go ahead.
and promoting inclusivity and diversity on college campuses is integral to the work we do in student affairs and services. The panelists comprising students and staff will share their experiences regarding DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and focusing on their perspectives while studying, living, and working in South Korea. And so we're going to have a very meaningful panel discussion. We have invited our moderator and panelists up onto the stage. And ladies and gentlemen, please give big hand once again. And so I'll hand it over the microphone to the moderator, please.
Thank you. Thank you. What we're going to do today, like the moderators suggested, is we're going to have two staff just give their perspectives on DEIB in South Korea. I'm going to introduce the two of them. And then after that, we'll have the students introduce themselves, and then I have a few questions. And we've already been working a little bit. We talked on virtually on Zoom about, was that 2 weeks ago? And then we also, some of us were able to speak last night. So I'm looking forward to presenting our wonderful students. Koo-sik Kim, recognized in his professional circles as KS, is currently refining his academic acumen as a doctoral candidate in the field of educational administration and higher education at Korea University. With an impressive educational foundation, KS holds a Bachelor of Arts in English Language Education from Korea University and a Master's of Business Administration from Sung Keen Kwan University, underscored by his esteemed selection as a Fulbright Scholar within the International Education Administrator Program in 2012. Commencing his career, KS has cultivated an extensive portfolio of expertise, strategic planning, student recruitment, international relations, and the cultivation of partnerships, both public and private sectors. His professional trajectory includes pivotal roles at UA Company Limited, M Square Media, the State University of New York's Korea campus, and Sun Guwan University. In addition, KS is an active contributor to the scholarly discourse in the field, with numerous papers and opinion pieces. I actually learned about Koo-sik from University World News. So I'm excited to hear from Koo-sik. We also have Stephanie afterwards, Stephanie Bodecker, American from the United States, has lived in South Korea on and off for the past 12 years and is currently working in residence at Brengsum Hall, Asia, an IB Word School on Jeju Island. What began a 1-year promise to teach English eventually led to a career change and development of passion for student advocacy and support. When she's not working, she loves yoga, so we now know she can go to Austria, and exploring new and different worlds through reading. So thank you. We'll start with Koo-sik.
Hi. As introduced, I'm KS. I'm a project manager at international education company called UA, and PhD candidate at Korean University concentrating on international education and educational administration. It's my distinct honor to be invited to be a speaker on today's student panel discussion. Today, as we all know, we'll delve into the theme of DEIB, principles that are increasingly vital in the interconnected world. As South Korea stands at the forefront of integrating these global standards, our discussion today will not only reflect on the national perspective, but also explore the profound global implications for our collective pursuit of social justice and sustainable development goals. The landscape of South Korean higher education and society is witnessing a marked increase in diversity, driven by demographic shift due to the low birth rates. This demographic reality has sparked active discussion about enhancing the attractiveness of South Korea as a home of diverse international population. As we all consider the fabric of our evolving society, it becomes crucial to foster an environment that respects and includes diverse identities encompassing race, ethnicity, nationality, age, beliefs, gender, sexual orientation, socio-economic status, and immigration status, among others. However, research on DEI in the context of higher education in South Korea remains notably limited, especially in the field of higher education. Apart from a few studies focusing on admission systems, so-called like race-conscious admission process, which is famous in the United States, the exploration of DEI as a robust academic discipline is still in infant stages, so to speak, particularly when we compare it to the comprehensive frameworks established in other parts of the world, particularly in the developed countries. I think the gap underscores the critical needs for enhanced scholar retention and policy development in this area. And that's why actually I conducted a research on DEI organizations in South Korean higher education last year. There is a growing recognition of the importance of DEI policies within South Korean universities. Hypothetically, I think inspired by the recent establishment of DEI offices, not recent, but historic, right? DEI offices in American universities, spurred by development of such as affirmative action, race-conscious admissions, and last year's significant Supreme Court decision ruling. South Korean institutions are beginning to embrace this global movement, and efforts are underway to diversify the traditional college entry age and promote lifelong education with increased support for LGBTQ students, groups, and other initiatives. These developments signal a promising shift towards more inclusive academic environment, as a few progressive universities have started to establish a dedicated organizations for DEI. So the narratives shared and ideas generated here will ripple outwards, enriching the discourse beyond our local context and contributing to a more just and equitable global society. Thank you for the enthusiastic participation today, and let the discussion begin.
Thank you, KS. So as Lise mentioned, my name is Stephanie, and I've been living in Korea on and off for the last 12 years. So I was invited in part to share some of my lived experience as a foreigner in Korea and also my work with students. My role has varied from an English teacher to a student myself studying the Korean language to now student support in residence with international students. So it's notable to mention that in the past 12 years, we've seen great change in just the general population as far as diversity in Korea. 12 years ago, if I walked on the street, it was very likely I would be pointed at and announced, "Oh, look, a foreigner." These days, when I go somewhere, the shock doesn't come upon faces in shops or at the bank. So it's interesting to see how this trend is now changing in higher ed as well. We see more students globally seeking to study the Korean language. There's Korean language programs at multiple universities across the nation, and that is a big drive for many of the international students, while there is also great support in scholarship and learning for students at all levels of education. And in speaking with my students, I ask about the challenges it is to be an international student in Korea. And notably, it is hard for them to fully ingrain themselves in the culture. Despite learning the language or learning some of the customs, if they don't look the part, they are often seen as an outsider. And so there's a lot of discourse about being the forever outsider when you are trying to integrate into the Korean society. And one more thing I'd like to mention is that there is, even within a society that is homogenous differentness in appearance, there is still great diversity within gender, age, class, and social status. So I'm curious to see how that represents in our student panel.
Hello. Okay, now I'm going to have the students introduce themselves. We'll start here right after Stephanie. If you could introduce yourself. And then they're going to each tell you what degree program they're with, what year, their nationality. I've also asked them to share obviously their major as well, and if there's any activities that they're involved in outside of the classroom.
Hi, my name is Hongjun, and I'm from Gwangwon University, and my major is International Studies, and my double major is International Trade. I'm junior in International Studies, so, and I'm gonna working in trade company after graduate. Thank you.
So, hello, I'm Seung Seok, and then I'm also a student from Gwangwon University, and then I'm spending my junior year in school. And currently, I'm not joining any school club because before graduation, I thought it is more important to get certificate in order to get in such a good companies after graduation. Thank you.
Xin chào, my name is Dang Tu Chang. I'm a Vietnamese student in Seoul National University. I've been living in Korea for 10 years now. First, I graduated as a hospitality and tourism management major student in Sejong University. After that, I worked for a while and then I applied for the master programs in Korean study in Seoul National University. This is my second semester in SNU. And for the first semester, I attended an internship of the diversity council. So what we did is we tried to provide a lot of different activities for students to get more awareness about diversities and inclusions and belongings between foreigners, international students, and also Korean students. And for this semester, I'm doing a mentoring programs to help with the newbies, like newcomers from the SNUs to get used to their environments and help them to get along with other international students. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Park Ki-kyung, and I'm studying in Seoul National University. I'm a graduate student, and my major is global education cooperation, and which is basically developing areas, but especially specializing in education. And this is my first semester, and I'm taking classes such as EFA, known as Education for All, SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, especially related to goal number 4, and also EID, Education and Development. And this is my first semester, and during the summer vacation, I'm planning to do an internship in Save the Children, so I guess that gives you a little bit of information of what this department is. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yang So-hyuk, and I'm a junior in the Gwangwon University, and I majored in international studies like them, and I double major business management. So I'm not sure about what I'm going to do after my graduation. I'm trying to find what I'm going to do. So that's why these days I'm doing a part-time job in the English Academy, teaching the middle school students. And these days I doing the band club as a vocal. So I'm trying to find my talent or something that I want to do in the future. So yeah, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Universe Resta. I'm from Nepal. I'm a sophomore currently studying software engineer. It has been almost 3 years since I came to Korea. And since my major is software, I'm currently involved in coding club. It's a club where we teach each other about different concepts and different programming languages. And I'm planning to go to graduate school after graduating my undergrad. Thank you. And it's an honor to be here. And it's an honor to be part of student panel.
Thank you. I want to also have a couple of the students introduce you to two universities that we have representing, Seoul National University and Kwanggun University. So I'm going to ask Sean to share a little bit about Seoul National University.
Sure, I would love to. Seoul National University, which I'm honored to attend the graduate program right now, is the top one university in South Korea. So if you ask Korean about Seoul National University, most of them will know about it. And Seoul National also is one of the biggest university in Seoul, Korea. They have like 5 different campuses, and the main campus is located in Seoul City. And most of the students will stay in the main campus. And at the moment, the university have nearly 30,000 students, which 57% of them, more than a half, are undergraduate students, and the other half are graduate students. Thank you.
Universe, will you share a little bit about Kwanggun University?
So in Kwangwon University, unlike SNU, it's really small university, but it has a lot of students, about like 8,000 people from undergrad and 2,000 people from graduate school. And among them, about 10% are international students. And even though it's small, personally I feel it's really convenient when you go from one class to another because you don't need to travel more. So I like my university, even though it's small.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to talk. I'm going to ask Hee Ki-young to start us off with describing diversity on your campus, or how would you describe diversity if I would ask you to describe diversity here in South Korea?
It's a really good question because it has really a lot to do with the major that I'm studying right now. Along with the side as DEI, which is really big in America. In Korea, we're mainly focusing on global citizenship education, and that is an aspect of bringing in the diversity relating to the SDG 4, the quality education, but also inclusive. And other than the major, in the campus that I'm feeling, it really takes account of diversity a lot because of the environment. For example, in the lab that I'm now in, there are people from different nationalities, and we all speak in English, so there's not much of a language barrier from people to people. And there are programs that are given to students, especially in graduate program. There is one program called 둥지 들기, which in English is nesting program. It's for the graduate students to actually nest in the campus, get along with each other, and get accustomed to. And in this program, what I thought was really interesting was given in how much they were considerate of the international students along with the Korean students. They would beforehand they would form groups to integrate Korean students with international students so they can get along with each other, and offer diverse meals, not only Korean based, but also taking in regards if they have like vegetarian or they need some halal, the kind of diversity. And overall, well, it's just my first semester, but I'm very impressed of how they are taking in account of in matters of diversity in the campus. Thank you.
Anyone want to add more about possibly gender and how gender plays out? Anyone? On how the gender looks on campus?
I will talk about it. So in Korea, there is the mandatory military service to men in Korea, Korean men. So there, it is inevitable to join the army for men. like early 20s. So there can be some gap between male and female in educational things or social things. So the men have to try more things to close that gap after the military service. So it's just kind of, it can be a kind of discrimination, or just it's just because of the Korean like political situation. So if there's some like solution or help for male, that could be good for men to adjust the campus life.
Thank you. Anyone else on gender?
So I would like to add to what Soyok said. So like as he mentioned before, that like the Korean men have obligation of the military service 1.5 hours, and then most of the Korean university, like the male students, are decided to go to serve the military service during the university life. So after they finish their freshman or sophomore years, they decided to go to the military service, and then 1.5, and then almost there is 2 years gap, and then the students of the female, like the who get into the university at the same time, while we're coming back to the university, they're almost done with their university life and then get ready to get into the society, to get a job and then to be more stabilized. So I think it could be a gender discrimination, and then that's what he wanted to say.
So you're seeing your peers step out, the men step out, and then the women continuing on. So it takes a little bit longer for the men. We had some great conversation a little bit about socioeconomic status and the difference of the universities. I would like maybe possibly Sin or Sungjun to share about what it's like as a national and trying to prepare to go to university. What's going on? What happens there? That's the impact. You guys are talking about the stress. Share? Okay. Do you want to share a little bit about you were talking about the test you have to take and the pressure?
So in Korea, from the elementary school to the high school, every student's main goal is just getting the university in Seoul. That's a really big goal for students and also their students' parents. So we studied, like, there's a two type of way to get in the university. First one is just like take a test, like a SAT called Sunung in Korea. And also other way is keep track on the 3 years of the high school and writing about their high school life, what they did during the high school. So then they take a interview in the university. So yeah, after that things, they get into the university, which is really hard time for the students. So most of the students in Korea, when they get into the university, they don't really study a lot like other countries, university students like America or somewhere. And also, yeah, they just enjoy the campus life, not like other countries.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone want to add anything? I saw Kusik say anything, and then I'm going to change the...
Let me just add a couple of more like the background information about like college admission process, because what he just mentioned is there are two types of admission process. One is more like using the standardized test. We call it CSAT, College Scholastic Aptitude Test, which I think most like over 80% of all senior high school students take to go to the college. The second is more like holistic process, which is pretty similar to the US model, so that they see everything that students submit as a portfolio. So in order to help your understanding, I just added a few comments.
So that impacts, if I remember we were talking about on how the Korean students work and how hard it is for them to get into the university. And we also talked about the grading process at the university. Last night was very interesting. I learned about that I think you guys might be of interest is that there was a different grading process for international students than the Korean students. Does anyone want to share about that? Do you want to share, Sean?
Yes. For my undergraduate program in Sejong University, my program was English track. So most of the students are international students. So we didn't have that kind of like separating grading system. But then I entered SNU, and then we have a lot, like we have like half Korean students and half international students in our classes. So most of what the professor would do is that we do this the same exams together, but then they will do the gradings like curving system for different segments. So international students got like graded like within ourselves, and then for Koreans they have like higher standard, and they have like they will group together to do different gradings. But most of them will do the curvings for the gradings.
Thank you. One of the questions we discussed too was about if there was any form of discrimination and how you have felt about that. University, you want to share a little bit about what you were thinking about related to the just acculturating into the university?
So like in university life, there's a lot of like team projects. So usually, since I'm from engineering department, so we have a lot of team projects. So I don't know about like the social science department, but in my department, as I have like participated in many team projects, I felt that like for example, if there are 3 Koreans and 1 international student, it doesn't matter where you're from. If you are good at something, if you are good in leading the team, like you don't get discriminated, you don't get left out. But like in contrast, like if you don't work hard enough or you're lazy compared to Koreans, because like Koreans are really competitive and they don't want to work with lazy people. So like they want to work with smart people. I think that's why like when Koreans work in team project with foreigners, it's really they're not the same standard, I guess. Like that's what Koreans feel, I guess. But if you are good enough, you get recognized, you don't get left out. So you should work hard, I think.
Thank you. The other thing we discussed too is about being supported. How are you feeling you're being supported? And we asked, last night Stephanie and I were trying to define for them, even today, what student affairs is like. We said, do you have an office of student affairs? They know Ben, some of the students here. Where's Ben in the audience? Because Ben helped me right over there. He's a team manager in international affairs, and he was helpful in bringing our Gwangun students here. But do you remember some support services, onboarding or orientation, anything you want to share that helped you to feel included in part of the university?
Yeah, I'd like to add more. So like, since I'm an international student, our university provides Korean language course that is mandatory, and you need to take that course during the freshman year. So like it kind of helped me to get adapt into Korean university because like we don't have any English track. Everything that we learn is in Korean. So I think that Korean class really helped me to get adapted to university. Yeah.
Anyone else want to talk about any other? Sure.
I think most Korean university has an international student group called SISA, SISA. So for SNU, for example, they have a huge also associations with as SISA, and they work together with the Office of International Affairs. So they have like communities to share every information of the Office of International Affairs to international students, and also they also do like independence activities to support international students to get more friends, and also how to doing like language exchange with Koreans and other students from other country too. So they're very supportive.
Anyone else want to comment on KUSUK, some other organizations or activities you're seeing on the campuses? Anything like that?
As I know, that in our Gwangwon University, there is some counseling program for foreign students. So if they have any problem in adjusting the campus life, or experience some discrimination in campus, they can go there and take a counseling there, and also they can talk about them with about after the graduation, like what they can do after the graduation, or what thing they can do, or what thing they want, they are good at it. So yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Yang.
everything.
Yeah. The other thing we talked about last night was the word foreigner versus international student. And I'm just going to ask if anyone wants to comment on that. We were talking about that. And then I'm going to close it and see if there's any questions from the audience.
I'm not sure.
They're shy. Over coffee, they weren't as shy last night.
Yeah, it's like I use the word foreigners a lot. Probably because I still feel a little bit like disconnected with the Koreans. Don't like misunderstand me. I'm major in Korean studies, so I do speak Koreans. But sometimes, yeah, I feel like I'm a foreigner. So I think that's why I use the word foreign students a lot instead of international students. But yeah, maybe I'll have to change.
You have any thought on that? Yeah, no.
Can I add?
Yes, go ahead, Universe.
So like when you say foreigners or international student, like when you say it in English, it doesn't like offend me. But like when you hear foreigner in Korean, when you walk in Korean, or whether you are inside university, it kind of offends me. Because like I'm also a regular student in university, just like any other Korean. So, but like when you hear foreigner, you just feel left out and kind of get offended. But when you hear it in English, it doesn't affect because it sounds really similar to me. Because foreigner student or like international student, it sounds really similar to me.
Okay, great. One last thing I heard about is the internet. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
I just had a follow-up question to kind of the last two combined. I noticed when you asked about services, everything was kind of the international office, meant counseling for the foreign students. So I'm just curious, is there any student services you could identify on campus that is more of an inclusive office to all students on campus, or even services for the Korean students?
Anyone? Good question.
Maybe the department office?
The what?
The department office. So they deal with both international students and Korean students. Back in Sejong, when I'm doing my undergraduate programs, the department is actually dealing with both Korean students and international students. So they give us a lot of insight how to deal with Korean students at the time. Yeah.
Great. I heard about this international festival going on. Very interesting. Do you want to share a little bit? Because you were telling me about the international festival. Which one of you guys want to share over there? Because we were talking about, this is a festival of activities that's going on this week. I thought you guys would like to, and we'll end with that, and then if there's any questions.
Yeah, so in Gwangwon University now we have a school festivals. Like it began yesterday to it ends at Friday, and then we are here to just share our experience. And So this is a school festival, like we do annually, and then I guess every like all of the university in Korea have a festival seasons, and then we call we call celebrities to come to like sings or like whatever, and then all the departments they plan a booth and a place to sell food and like have some activities that we can join. And then I think it's such a great chance for the international students and all the Korean students join together and then have some fun in this time.
And we have a concert. Universe, what's the name of the concert you're looking forward to?
So like on Friday, in my university, I'm gonna get a chance to see my favorite K-pop group. So they're aespa. So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward for it.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just want to let's a round of applause for the students. And thanks to Kusak and Stephanie. Is there any question from the audience? We might be able to take a question. Otherwise, the students are going to be here all day. They'll come to the session. They'll be around for the gala, so you can ask any questions you have. I'm just mindful on our time. Anyone have a question? Well, I hope you enjoyed getting a feel. I know I did. Get a little bit feel of the university and what it's like from these students' lens and perspectives. And I really want to thank Kusak and Stephanie for their time as well, to share a little bit of their knowledge with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the insightful discussion. It was a valuable time to identify future directions through the stories by the student panelists. Thank you very much. Please send out a big hand to the chair and all of the panelists for this very good discussion. Yes, you may return your seats. Thank you very much for the panel discussion. And this concludes the morning schedule for today. Are you feeling hungry? Okay, it's finally time for lunch. Lunch is ready at the Dadamdil buffet on the second floor. Like yesterday, please show your name tags at the entrance before entering. However, it seems that the restaurant is very crowded and it will be difficult to move individually. So we will move to the cafeteria together. I will appreciate it if you could follow the guidance. And please enjoy your lunch from now to 1:30 p.m. and then please join the sessions starting at 1:30 p.m. And since today's gala dinner schedule is from 6 o'clock, please finish all sessions at 5 o'clock, please. And I look forward to seeing you again at the gala dinner. Thank you very much. Please enjoy your dinner. Lunch. Sorry. 네, 이제 점심 시간이 시작이 됐고요. 1시 30분까지 점심 식사를 즐기시면 되겠습니다. 2층에 있는 다담들의 점심이 준비가 돼 있습니다. 어제와 마찬가지로 그 입장을 하시기 전에 네임택을 보여주시면 확인을 하고